Greetings. This video is on writing a persuasive introduction for a Year 9 student at an A level. In previous videos, we've covered following the 3 steps associated with structuring an essay introduction. We've talked about the difference between a C level, which follows those steps, and a B level, which expands on those steps and also includes some basic nominalization. And today we're going to be looking at creating an A level. Now, the first thing that you might notice in looking at our 3 different types of introductions is that, yes, they are getting significantly longer. And what that means is we're getting significantly more detail. The other side of this is the fact that we're putting in more information per sentence, which means that our level of writing is getting increasingly denser. Now, there's a couple of things to really remember about writing an A level. It still follows the same structural composition as the previous 2 introductions. The difference between people who get a C and people who get a B and the A-level students is that those structures are not necessarily in order. When we talk about A-level writing, we really need to think about the progression of our writing to be more organic than mechanic. Mechanic means that we've got a series of bits and pieces that are all put together like you would assemble a transformer or a car or a piece of Lego, anything around that line. However, when we talk about an A-level piece of writing, things are more fluid, and I think about the vines on a tree which grow and interweave. Everything we need for a successful introduction is still inside this piece, however, the delivery is much more natural. As well as that, we've got some technical improvements. As we mentioned, the density of our writing is much higher, which means that we've got longer sentences which cover more information. As well as that, we can actually see the inclusion of persuasive devices, and that shows that we're already in our introduction thinking about how to persuade our reader. The third piece of this is that we're also using nominalization, and we're using it not just once or twice, but consistently and effectively. These 3 things really categorize what an A-level writing piece is. However, there's a little bit more to it than that. If you're looking to be a truly great writer and someone that really engages your audience, you also need to show a bit of character in your writing. And we're going to talk about how that is expressed in our example today. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the structure of our A-level piece, using the same stuff that we've worked on in the past couple of videos. I'm going to copy this down below, and we're going to pull apart our piece and show how it fits together. So we know that in order to have a successful introduction, the first thing we need to do is put it together using these 3 steps. When we look at the first step, make a broad statement about the topic. You remember that to get a C, all we had to do was write, chewing gum is a big deal. To get a B, we had to expand on that. We had to be a bit more formal, use some more sophisticated language, and also show a bit more information about it. In this case, not just that it's a big deal, but it's actually a confectionery product which is available in most shops. If I look at my A level, you're going to see the exact same approach, however the detail is significantly more noticeable. Let's have a read. Over the past 5,000 years, humans have been habitually chewing different substances. Whether in the form of bark, tar, or tree resin, it is clear that there has always been something to keep our jaws moving. That's a bit of that character that we've been talking about. We'll come back to that. Since the early 1860s, commercial chewing gum, which is made largely of plastic-based polymers, has been a popular confectionery product, which is said to be one of the highest grossing and popular luxury items sold in modern society. Now, as you can see, there's a lot more depth and a lot more complication to that part of the introduction. And if I copy that section and bring it down here, you can see that the size is significantly bigger. So what does this really do that the B level doesn't? Now, it's not just the fact that it's more words, because some people can really ramble on in their writing and it doesn't take them from a B to an A. What makes this really different is the fact that not only does it cover the same information as the other 2, but it adds personality, and it also shows evidence of research and facts, which are essentially a persuasive device. It starts off by setting a stronger context. Over the past 5,000 years, humans have been habitually chewing different substances. Whether in the form of bark, tar or tree resin, it is clear that there has always been something to keep our jaws moving. Now, when you read this, it's not just like reading something off of a page. You can actually tell that there's someone really speaking to us here, even though they're still using written language. This is called writing with character. And the trick to really being a successful writer is to not only write the information, but write it in a way that makes people laugh, cry, give a reaction of some sort. It's actually putting yourself out there. And I think that in this case, that's been really successfully done. So if you're looking for the A, you have to think about not only conveying the information in a kind of mechanical, put the pieces together way, but you have to think, how am I really entertaining and engaging my reader? We then go on to show that this particular person has done some research. Since the early 1860s, commercial chewing gum, which is made largely of plastic-based polymers, has been a popular confectionery product. Just this language alone shows a higher level of sophistication in the communication of this student, and it also shows that they've researched and really understand this issue on a more complex level. For the person who said chewing gum is a big deal, yes, they recognise that it is popular to a certain extent, but they haven't shown us that greater level of in-depth analysis, whereas this person's done a really great job. The second part is which is said to be one of the highest grossing and popular luxury items sold in our modern society. Now, what I really like about this piece is some of the language that they've used. Similar to the person who did a B level, they've referred to it as confectionery, which is essentially any kind of packaged luxury item, like, for example, a chocolate bar or even a bottle of Coke or anything like that comes under this process of confectionery. It's not organic food, it's not like your fruit and veg, it's kind of a packaged, preserved type of treat or snack, usually pretty sugary. As well as that, I enjoy the term that they've used, luxury items. And what a luxury item is something that we actually don't need, but we choose to buy. Once again, we could say that we've got things that we need, for example, water, because without water or fluids of any type, we could very well find ourselves dehydrated and dead. However, chewing gum, on the other hand, doesn't really sustain us, and if we weren't ever to have chewing gum again, we would still live long and happy lives. I think that's the definition of a luxury item. So I enjoy the way that this student has really looked into and researched ways that they could communicate exactly what this is. Rather than the person who just said chewing gum is a big deal, they've expressed that it is a confectionery product, it's been around since the 1860s, it's a luxury item, it fulfills a need, which is a need to chew, is what they're essentially talking about. So they've really defined it. If we go into our second section and we move up to our A level, you'll see that the second section is about identifying the problem. Now, in this case, this is where things start to get a little bit tricky, because they have done the second section and the third section, but they haven't put them together one after the other. They've hidden the third section inside the second section. Now, it comes to a really good statement that I always remember, which is that good writers know the rules, great writers break the rules. If you didn't understand the structure of an introduction, then you wouldn't have this information in there in the first place. But once you really practice and work with this process of putting together these three pieces, you can actually interweave them. And as long as they are all in there, you've still got an effective introduction. Let me show you what I mean. When we move into the second stage of this introduction, we can see our desperation to chew, however, has seen the rise of a number of significant issues which have proven to perform more harm than good. So in this case, I would highlight that blue because it's identifying the issue. Now look at this. Whether it is the ever-increasing medical research associated with stomach and digestive problems, the ignorance of our chewing, I think there's supposed to be a comma in there, our chewing, spitting, and ultimately disruptive social habits, or the recorded 500-year breakdown process in our waste disposal facilities. Now, if I just pause there, think about what this section is. I think if you're nodding along with me, you'll know that this is actually, oh, now I've got my colours wrong. This is the blue section, okay, and this is the green section. Whoops, hopefully you're still following along with me. But you can see that actually they started to identify what the subject of discussion was, and then they've weaved in what the actual piece is going to be about, and then they've finished in green. It is clear that this is a product that needs immediate removal. It's interesting to look at the way they voiced this in comparison to the C level, which just said, in this essay, we will discuss how chewing gum impacts on health, social habits, and the environment. In this case, it was very limited what this student has told us about what they're actually planning to discuss. When I read their first paragraph, I would assume it's going to be about health, something to do with health. I don't exactly know what, but at least I kind of know what to expect. When I come down to this side, they've done the exact same thing, but it's much more subtle and much more informative. Let's look at this. Whether it is the ever-increasing medical research associated with stomach and digestive problems. Okay, what have they essentially said? They've said that they're going to be talking about health, yes. However, they've used some more specific terms. Increasing medical research, stomach and digestive problems. Straight away from reading this introduction, I've got a much stronger sense of what this student is going to be talking about in their first paragraph than I did for the C level or the B level. Similarly, you can see here the ignorance of our chewing, spitting, and ultimately disruptive social habits. Up here, I just said social habits, but down in the A level, I'm being much clearer. And again, you can see a hint of the type of examples and the type of discussion I'm going to be using. And thirdly, it says here, or the recorded 500-year breakdown process in our waste disposal facilities. And again, up here I just said the environment. So you can see that the difference between the C, the B and the A is that I'm being increasingly clearer in what I'm expressing. As well as that, I'm also showing much more polished language and much more variety and description in what I'm saying. Now, the last point I'll point out here is just a little bit about some of the features that are really required in the A level. And there's another video that tells you those features about the difference between A, B and C. But let's look how we can actually build over some of these things. For example, we could say here, whether in the form of bark, tar or tree resin, it's clear that there's always been something to keep our jaws moving. This is actually a persuasive device. And the particular device that I would talk about is inclusivity, making us seem like we're all in this together, making us seem like, using words like our, makes us feel like a team, I suppose you could say. The next one that we can look at here is, since the 1860s, commercial chewing gum has been a base product. This is evidence and facts, which is again one of your persuasive pieces. Okay, so we've got a couple of persuasive devices in there. A couple of other things to look at is the use of nominalization. Rather than saying we are desperate to chew or because we are desperate to chew, this student has said our desperation to chew, which is examples of nominalization. Desperation in this case is the noun, has seen the rise of a number of significant issues. Again, nominalization, which have proven to perform more harm than good. Whether it is the ever-increasing medical research, that's nominalization, associated with stomach and digestive problems, that's nominalization. The ignorance of our chewing, spitting and ultimately disruptive social habits, that's nominalization. Or the recorded 500-year breakdown process, that's nominalization. And lastly, waste disposal facilities, that's nominalization as well. So you can see that the thing that really makes this feel polished and well communicated is the fact that they're nominalizing their language, which makes it seem much more formal. If you follow this progress of going from C to B to A, you should see yourself writing on a much higher level. It's important to make sure that we're following that structure and that all of those three things are in there. However, when you're at an A level, they don't necessarily have to be in the same order. As well as that, we can recognise that the inclusion of persuasive devices and nominalisation in writing is a requirement at the higher level A band. Hopefully this has given you a bit of insight into how to improve the quality of your writing.